For further background about this webinar series in general, and today's topic in particular, I would like to introduce our colleague, John Wucher. At this point, we are now...
And the community leaders, the rabbis, the educational directors, everybody's coming in one direction to us, and we're helping to manage the process. In reality, it's a mess, and we really don't have centrality for a lot of things, and there are a lot of things we'd like to make happen that we really can't make happen in the community. So I want to just speak about one example within our community where I've been sort of working behind the scenes to really, I think, an example of sort of leading without having necessarily the authority, and really one of the hard parts is that you're really letting other people lead, but you're still making that happen. So in our community, the issue that I'm going to talk about is the preschools. Our congregational preschools are dwindling due to demographic changes. The Census Bureau just released data yesterday, and Michigan lost the most amount of kids, which has a lot to do with economics and other things. In addition, the public schools are now a very good alternative for parents. The Michigan public schools are paid per pupil now. Used to be property tax, and now they changed it to no matter where the student resides, any student go to any school that's open to them, and the schools get money for those students. So the schools began preschools to try to increase their pupil count, and to attract families earlier into their schools. In addition, the synagogue preschools, which used to make money for the congregations, are no longer profitable. That's because teachers are retired, other teachers need more money, and it's costing more money to reach preschools. And the synagogues themselves are facing significant financial challenges due to demographic and economic shifts. We're starting to see people drop synagogue membership when they used to keep it post-bar and bat mitzvah, and the synagogues themselves are struggling. In addition, we have Hillel Day School, which was a Salman Schechter school until last year. It's now a community day school. It's associated with Ravsak. Hillel never had a preschool. It began in kindergarten because it didn't want to compete with its feeder schools, its synagogues. But it realized that as the synagogue preschools were shrinking and losing market share to public schools and others, that they were losing market share as well and really needed to do something about it. I've been meeting with the individual presidents of conservative congregations, and they've been meeting with other federation leaders to sort of discuss their financial difficulties. We have leverage in that we provide an allocation of $500,000 a year for congregational schools out of the allocation pool for scholarships. So money does make a difference, and it does change the relationship, and it means that we have a foot in the door. And I convened a meeting of the leadership of the conservative congregations. Why not the reform is a whole other story. Last spring, to really begin to talk about how Federation can be helpful and what they're doing to sort of working on synergies and other things. Even though some of them are facing severe financial hardship, they're all waiting for the other one to close, and then they'll take over their members. And they're all holding on in a variety of ways. So we discussed really two things as a result of that meeting. One was combining educational programs, finding a way to cut spending through collaborative approach, and I began working with them on combining educational programs. Our largest conservative congregation was looking at merging its preschool with another conservative congregation because they realized that they can't continue to succeed, and at the same time I was having discussions with Hillel Day School that was ready to go to its board and get permission to explore starting their own preschool. And I helped facilitate a meeting that took place between the congregation and Hillel Day School. Hillel has now formed a committee with representatives of the conservative congregation and myself to explore opening a preschool this September. Other congregations have been invited to meetings, and we've had private meetings. They're not ready to join yet, but we're having discussions with them. And I think we're beginning to change the dynamics of the way that preschools exist in our community. I think it will be helpful for Hillel Day School because we'll begin for them to have feeder into their school, and will also help the congregations in ways to continue having preschool. We're talking about the fact that congregations will still subsidize their members at the preschool, but it's an opportunity to build the best for the community. And I think that the way that I call this leadership without authority is that we're sort of leading by being in the right position. And the lesson for me is that we have to have a relationship with lots of our constituents and know what's going on. We have to be able to lead without taking the lead necessarily, and we have to take advantage of opportunities that exist. And I think if we're able to do that, then we're able to really to move forward in a lot of different ways and sort of continue to lead without necessarily having that authority to lead. In essence, that's the example I wanted to give for Detroit.
Thank you, Judah. Any questions about Judah's presentation in terms of clarifying what he said or wanting to expand on some things which he might have alluded to?
This is Edith. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you, Edith.
Okay. Just one clarifying question. In your initial diagram, I noticed that you separated out rabbis from educators from synagogues. However, I noticed in your presentation about the merging and the dealing with the schools, not dealing with schools, you simply mentioned the congregations. I'm curious what your relationship was in this, if there was a distinction between all these meetings and your building of networks between educators, rabbis, and what does congregation mean?
All right, so I basically made a long story short, but there were individual meetings with the rabbis. The rabbis are on board. The congregations, I really mean the leadership of the congregation, and the other is the educational directors. I mean, the preschool director's not necessarily so excited about this, as you can understand, but there are a lot of pieces that sort of come into that whole equation, and there are a lot of pieces that had to be massaged to get us to where we are today. Is that helpful?
Anybody else with a question? Jude, I have a question.
Yes.
As I read your PowerPoint in advance and I heard your presentation, it seems like you have personally, or it seems more personally than the agency, but you are representing the agency, have found yourself in the middle of lots of different important community discussions. How did you get there?
How did we get there? Well, I think there are two things. I think the fact that we give a monetary allocation to congregations means we have a different relationship with our congregations to start with that helps us get there. And I think it's a lot of relationship building. It's a lot of meetings with people, and it's a lot of. I think we always have to be in the center of a lot of different things without necessarily being center. So I spend a lot of my time meeting with rabbis, meeting with educators, meeting with a lot of different people, while my staff's working on specific programs and specific ideas in terms of the larger things. Those are the kinds of things that I'm always trying to be out there, and I think that for us to lead without authority, we have to really be in the community and really be engaging all of the stakeholders that are out there.
One other thing, in one of your slides you mentioned that Federation had been having meetings and you were having meetings. Can you comment on the integration between those two types of meetings?
They're the same. I'm Federation when those things happen. The only thing is that in terms of financial, making the congregations, we're working on congregations doing some financial, trying to look the right synergies and how they can more effectively buy things and other things. That's been taken over sort of by the finance department of Federation, but in essence, I started that discussion and then laid them there. So I am Federation to that degree, but it helps to have that framework. So does that help? Yeah.
So when the congregations and all these other community organizations are dealing with these major issues, they're coming to you. They're not going to somebody in the Federation.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from people or comments?